Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be with you today. My name is Melissa Chelius. I'm a licensed broker and I've been selling real estate for just under 10 years now. I've completed about a little over 100 transactions. So done a little bit of work myself. Not only am I a licensed broker, I'm still a practicing realtor. And I sell about between 10 and 15 million in volume per year. About 1 to 2 transactions a month. So I am just here to provide you some information on buyer's agent tasks, listing agent tasks, and transaction duties, and how we're affected and operating through coronavirus. I'm also a committee member for Young Professionals Network at Orange County Realtors, which I love. And I just started serving as a California Association of Realtors director. So I'm really excited to be serving our community for the next 3 years. Of course, if you have any questions, throw them up in the chat box for me. You can also DM me on my Instagram handle, which I'll post in a second, or send me an email. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. All right, so here's all my contact information, my Instagram handle. Please look me up if you're really bored throughout this. Just follow me or like some of my posts, that'd be great. Of course, you can always contact me via cell or email anytime. I'm always happy to help out anybody. So we love Agent Bootcamp, and thank you so much for attending. Again, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate this time to be able to just share some tips with you. I was once a new realtor myself and just a sponge to absorb any and all information I could about being able to be successful in real estate. So I definitely want to give back to the community in that regard. So a couple things I'm going to talk about: listing agent duties, buyer's agent, and transaction tasks. And operating in a COVID world, the DRE just posted some information on industry guidance. So I posted a link here, and also just so you know, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint with everyone at the end of the webinar. So don't feel like you have to take notes or jot anything down. I will share this to you free of charge, no obligation. So again, this was just posted regarding COVID-19 from the DRE. So, or the DRE shared it actually, I'm sorry, the California state put this out, just on workplace safety plans, measures, things like that. So take a look at that. Also, just a reminder, I am not a licensed attorney or CPA or financial advisor or any of those things. I'm only a licensed broker. So definitely consult an appropriate professional should you have questions related to any of those items. Also, of course, always consult your own broker. And if you have any legal questions, you can always call the CAR legal hotline. So don't forget about that. It's a great resource for you that is free. And again, feel free to post in the chat box. Don't forget to like Orange County YPN's page. Find us and like us. We have lots of events and fun things throughout the year. So we'd appreciate you to follow our page and stay involved and in the loop. So getting right into it, the PEAD form is our coronavirus property entry advisory and declaration for the bulk of your duties as a listing agent and a buyer's agent. You're going to need to utilize this form mainly in its entirety. Of course, we have the listing agreement addendum, but the PEAD form is really what we're going to be using most frequently during our tasks in terms of transactions. Make sure that you have refreshed your Zip Forms feed to include the newest version, updated in April 30th is the newest version of the PEAD form. The original one was only 1 page, and as you can see, this one is 2 pages. So just make sure that you have that and had the time to review it. It does briefly cover best practices in terms of washing your hands, wearing a mask, wearing gloves if you'd so choose to wear gloves, and things like that, and just overall also great to initiate a conversation with whomever you're taking, whether you're on a listing appointment, working with a seller, and how you can incorporate best practices in terms of servicing them, and or if you're showing properties with a buyer, hey, what's going to be our game plan for today? And I'll talk about that a little bit later, what my suggestions are going to be for that. So just make sure everything is signed and you provide this to the appropriate party at the appropriate time. And I'll cover this a little bit more with specific duties as well. So I'm going to just put my listing agent hat on right now and go through a couple slides regarding how that's related. In terms of preparing for a listing presentation, of course, you want to have your timing and all your homework done ahead of time. Make sure you have a CMA prepared for your seller. If they're selling contingent, make sure that you have those forms available to review with them and advise them on contingencies. Maybe have like a sample timeline of what a typical 30-day escrow looks like and how that's going to affect them as a contingent seller and things like that. Now, I have to say, I was on a virtual listing appointment last week, and the seller flat out told me, I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that you're going to do a 3D tour on my home, because that was going to be one of my first questions. And if you didn't offer that service, I would not be hiring you. So I want to let everybody know that these 3D tours are imperative right now. They really are. I know it can be tight on your budget to include all of these extra services, but it's really, really important that you do. And it can make you stand out to provide that information up front, so you're familiar with the service, and it's going to be great. The Matterport 3Ds have gotten so wonderful in terms of being able to provide a really realistic virtual tour for the buyers. They make your listing stand out. They impress your sellers when you provide the service. Matterport's now even added in, like, they can measure the rooms with the Matterport tours. It blows my mind. So make sure that you include this and provide that. And again, with coronavirus in place and the stay-at-home orders in place, it really does alleviate the need for buyers to just go out and tour, 5 or 6 properties in one day. Send them the virtual tours first. Here you go, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer. Check out the virtual tour, walk through the property, go drive by the property, and then if you still really like it, then yes, of course, we can go see it. But make sure that they're doing their work up front before you have to go in and put your safety at risk in terms of providing them this essential service that they may need in terms of buying or selling a home. Now with staging, staging can go both ways. Obviously, we love to have a house staged. They show well, they sell faster, they look spectacular. But keep in mind, we can also offer virtual staging too. I use a company called Virtual Staging House Media. They seem to be like a really low cost virtual staging provider that I've worked with several times, and I actually really like the way that their photos look. They don't look like they're computer generated furniture. They actually look like real furniture. So I like using them, but there's so many options to choose from. I know Box Brownie is a big one, virtual staging solution. I don't know, like VRX staging. There's so many different companies. You can just Google them, research them, pick whichever you like best. So keep that in mind, that you can do that as well. In terms of virtual open houses, CRMLS has provided a great guide on virtual open houses, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but just virtual tours, I guess you could say. So take a look at this. This is their FAQ page, but they also offer, their app to do and other resources here as well in terms of virtual open houses. So keep that in mind there. And then of course, if you have a move up or move down needs from your seller, make sure that you address those, and then don't forget your PEAD. And the PEAD, of course, is related to any service providers that you book ahead of time. So if you are booking if and when you are booking a photographer and or an additional service provider for Matterport 3D, those service providers each need to fill out a PEAD form that they need to sign, and you need to provide to the seller to sign as well, since they'll be entering their property. If you're getting a pre-listing home inspection or any other pre-listing inspections, they also need to be signed and provided to the seller. Continuing with listing agent activities and prospecting, we all still can be prospecting right now. I do believe that the DRE said that they don't want any direct marketing going on, which would consist of like door knocking, or, canvassing a neighborhood and passing out flyers or something like that. They don't want you doing that. However, you're heading back to the old school in terms of direct mail is still allowed. So if you have a great a package for someone who's divorced or empty nesters or people who are moving or FSBOs or expired listings, dust off dust off your brochure and send them some direct mail, because we're all stuck at home, and guess what? Everybody's looking at what they get in the mail. They're looking at all the solicitations. They're looking at all the junk mail. They've got time for it right now. They're not just going to throw it in the trash. They're actually going to look at it. So I highly suggest putting an emphasis in these types of prospecting activities right now in order to supplement your existing business. It's very important, and you can definitely stay top of mind and stay present in the moment right now. Of course, digital marketing is ever so relevant as well. In addition to us all having to stay home and limit our exposure outside, we are spending a lot more time, I think, on social media, Facebook and Instagram especially. So if you have some extra budgeting dollars, definitely throw them at Facebook and Instagram. Of course, LinkedIn is always great for making connections and staying relevant there with your professional sphere. And don't forget about your organic reach. Post some fun TikTok videos or YouTube or Snapchat, whatever. But the organic interface is also nice online as well. Don't forget about Lion's Desk CRM. That's a free OCR benefit. I also love reports on housing. Of course, you have to pay a monthly fee. It's cheap though. It's so cheap. If you haven't subscribed to reports on housing, you need to. I use their infographics for listing presentations. I use them in my monthly emails. I'll use them on some of my Facebook posts. I mean, the information that they post is so relevant, and it's just great to be able to review the stats. Everyone always asks, what's the market doing right now? Or, what's our average selling time right now? What's the average days on market? If you're paying attention to those reports on housing emails every month, you'll be able to answer those when people ask, and, stay relevant. eProperty Watch is also a free member benefit. I love it. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. If you have some properties that you sold, if you have past clients, eProperty Watch is an amazing resource for staying top of mind with an additional email marketing campaign with them. eProperty Watch automatically they automatically email quarterly your clients their value of their property, if it's increased or decreased and things like that. And they have your picture and your information and all that. So it's just wonderful. I love it. Definitely sign up. Set yourself up to win. A couple pre-listing tips here for you that you can take advantage of if you have any listing appointments. And again, really just make sure that you are catering to your client. There's some listing appointments that you might be able to go on right now completely virtual via Zoom or some other webcast or online resource. And there's some that you won't. There's some that you're still going to have to interface face-to-face. So keep in mind who your audience is, make sure you're catering to them and what they need. So now we're going to shift into buyer's agent tasks and how we are catering to that right now. So for buyer's consultations, again, it's similar to the sellers. Who's your audience? Are your buyers young, first-time home buyers, or are they empty nesters or are they relocating or what have you? Make sure you know your audience and set up your appointment accordingly. Now, with the Zoom meetings, first-time buyers, those are great. I just did one the other week and it went really, really well. And sometimes you just have to interface in that. But setting up a virtual meeting, this is another tip from CA MLS again on virtual meetings and virtual open houses. So make sure you take advantage of those resources that are available. And then again, remember that the buyer's consultation is about them and not you. Make sure you're listening to the buyer's needs, asking questions, being interested, and then of course, if you want to set up a buyer's representation, that's up to you. And of course, once you do get all their needs list, make sure that you set them up on a custom search. It's an easy way to automate your business for them. And it kind of takes a lot of the legwork out of it. Now, MLS Touch is great. whether you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, I still highly recommend that you have a Facebook business page, and you can integrate your Facebook business page on MLS Touch. It's very, very easy and simple to do. I'll walk you through it really quick. You download the app, and then on the home screen on the bottom right hand side, there's a little dash, a couple dashes, and it says the word more. Tap on that, and then it'll say Facebook Publishing Tool. Tap on Facebook Publishing Tool, and that will automatically automate your posts for you. Link to your Facebook business page. It's great because if you sell a property, list a property, post an open house, what have you, it will automatically post for you whatever that information is, and it gives like a cute little website that people can click on and find information. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend it. Of course, make sure your buyers are pre-approved before you send them out, especially nowadays. I mean, if we didn't have any excuse to push pre-approval, coronavirus is definitely one. I typically do not show properties to buyers unless they're pre-approved, so make sure they get pre-approved with a qualified lender. And if they can even do underwriting up front or do approval up front, even better. And of course, request your proof of funds. Sample cover letters are always great for the buyers, so keep that in mind as well. Once your offer is accepted, don't panic. We can get through this. Luckily, most of our duties are virtual nowadays anyways. So, you know, lots of emails throughout the contract period. So keep that in mind. Regarding inspections, again, don't forget the PEAD for service providers. Now you're going to be setting up home inspections, appraisals, maybe a sewer inspection, getting an electrician out to the property, a structural engineer, whoever goes to the property for the inspections, termite especially, they need to sign the PEAD. They need to sign it, and you need to send it to the seller and the seller's agent. You need to initial it as well, but they need to sign it as well. So keep in mind, anyone that enters the property, make sure that they do that ahead of time. Okay. Now, with the home inspectors, most home inspectors now will not inspect the property with your buyers present. Make sure that the buyers are aware of this ahead of time so that they're not surprised and disappointed and sour. Now, the home inspection companies that I've worked with during COVID-19 will always call the buyer and conference call you, and if you request or if your buyer requests, and walk you through their main findings. So keep in mind, you're never going to miss out on that. But again, just set up the expectations with the buyer that, you know, this is something they're just going to miss out on. Especially if the property is still owner occupied, you really need to limit that exposure to the seller and to the buyer in terms of interaction, you know, on somebody else's property. So regarding the secondary inspections, again, too, just make sure the PEAD is signed. Try and, you know, if your buyer does want to come out to the property, and maybe you can allow them to do that while you do your avid or something like that, or when the property is vacated. But again, still, we brush up on your guidelines from the DRE, brush up on whatever your broker is telling you regarding showings and timing at each property, and, you know, making sure you have a plan. Whatever you choose to do with your buyers, you know, make sure that the expectations are set ahead of time in terms of mask coverings, gloves, hand washing, and sanitizing or things like that, and bring some extra supplies with you if they don't have anything either. The request for repairs, of course, is kind of our normal. Nothing's changed here in terms of transactionally what you're doing during COVID-19. You know, just remember, of course, my biggest recommendation for any agent during any transaction is remind the buyer ahead of time, hey, you bought the house as is, it's in the purchase contract. The request for repairs is really meant for, you know, anything major that came up that was really, really unexpected, you know, code items or termite repairs or things like that. So the nitty gritty, like replace this light switch or the doorbell or things like that, I mean, I would really highly recommend you to just finesse a conversation with your buyer on, hey, you know, this is something you do as a homeowner. So you don't want to lose a deal. But again, it's all about setting up expectations with the buyers ahead of time in that, so they're not disappointed or feel like they need to cancel or anything like that. For contingency removals, No, the biggest takeaway here is, again, transactionally, this hasn't changed a lot. Just make sure that you send this in writing, guys, okay? You know, not a text, not a phone call. Make sure it's in writing. We need these in writing for our files, and just as, you know, as a courtesy for us as agents, don't make us pull teeth here on getting this to you. Keep in mind, just like the request for repairs, you could send multiple contingency removals. So I've had one transaction, I think the most I've had is 4 contingency removals in a transaction. So if you need to send them at different times, that's okay. Go ahead, do it. Just make sure they're in writing. At the home stretch of the transaction, you know, again, most of this is fully electronic in terms of sending over your final paperwork. All of the loan signing and all that really doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm sure your lender is going to be sharing their best practices with the buyers on what systems and processes they have in place during COVID-19 for loan signing, etc. The only other item that I wanted to touch on is the final walkthrough or verification of property condition. Now, as you know, and as is stated in the RPA, this is not a requirement of the sale. So really use your best judgment. If you're not sure, ask your broker about whether or not you should even conduct one. Personally, for me and what I'm doing, you know, if the property is vacant, you know, there's not a huge issue with doing a final walkthrough on the property as long as we're social distancing, staying 6 feet away, we've got our masks on, and you know, there's not more than, you know, 2 persons in any home at any time. But if the property's owner occupied, I would probably steer clear of doing that and just waiting. Of course, if there is any damage or unresolved repairs, you can document that and always, you know, deal with that after closing. It would be a pain, but you know, we still have to put our health and safety above and beyond some of these items that we can address in a small claims court or arbitration mediation situation. So yay, if you made it to closing during, you know, COVID-19, congrats to you. We are still closing transactions, so you can do it, and don't be discouraged. It's all possible, and there are still people that need to buy and sell right now. So make sure that you make yourself available to support them. If you have any questions, again, feel free to email me, text me, DM me, or throw them up in the chat room right now. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Have a great day. Thanks so much.